Hey, good morning, YouTube. Bringing you a short this weekend. Little project I worked on with my father-in-law. He came down for the weekend to work on some stuff. Decided that I needed to organize my 4 different piles of lumber that I had laying all around the shop. This was the solution I came up with. Had a problem. It's not a problem anymore. So come along. Let me show you what features I decided to come out with and what my uh, first version of my storage rack is going to look like. Let me show you the features. All right, here we go. This is the design I came up with for the first portion of my lumber storage. As you can see, the way I have it set up is I have 5 shelves with the understanding that that very top shelf, I will probably only put like dowels and very small light pieces up there. I have no real reason to store anything heavy that high above my head. So most of my heavy lumber and everything is going to go down here, which is on the lower racks. As you can see, I've already kind of sort of separated it a little bit, but there are some cool features I wanted to make sure I worked in to this space. So for starters, I have horizontal storage. I ran 2x4 stanchions all the way up to the rafters, but they're firmly planted on the ground. So there's no actual weight or load bearing up here on these rafters. It's simply transferred all the way to the ground, sitting on the floor. I then spaced them off the wall. I don't know, I think this is right around from, there to there is like 20-ish inches, maybe 24 inches. I did that so that I can bring in and have some storage for some sheets of plywood. The plywood's just gonna go back there. It's gonna sit on that little MDF base and basically lean up against the wall. Most of the weight is gonna be up here in the front. It's gonna be sitting on each of these runners that come out. The bottom shelf comes out 24 inches. These top shelves right here, these guys, I believe I cut down to 16 inches just because that is like right at eye level for me. And the last thing I wanna do is run straight into the end of a pole. I cut them back. I'd rather hit my leg, my thigh, than poke an eye out. So this is the first side and the first part of lumber storage for the shop. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clear out this section back here, which is kind of hard to see, but there is a sink and a dishwasher, which the previous homeowners used for cleaning honey pots and bees and stuff like that. I think I'm gonna turn that into box storage, and I'm gonna store everything, because from the wall out, I would have about 2 feet. So I'm gonna store anything 2 feet and under. Basically anything that doesn't fit on these shelves will get shoved into one of those boxes back there. And then I will have box storage for all little stuff. Should be relatively easy. That'll be another video when I rip out that sink area, get rid of the dishwasher, and then build the box lumber storage. So, but let's get going on this build. Let me show you what I did.
So this is what I started with. This is the pile where material would come in the back door and just get thrown on the ground. Not very organized, I'd have to dig through it. So we started picking out a couple of 2x4s that were going to stretch the roof to the floor. I basically just cut them about 8 inches taller than my ceiling. That way I could screw them in at the top and have them rest secure and flush on the floor with just a couple of spacers to keep it equal distance from the wall, and have some vertical storage behind for sheets of plywood and accessories. After we got these cut to length, I basically just decided my bottom two shelves would be a little bit larger at like 2 feet, and then I would have the upper shelves a little bit shorter in order to allow for heavy stuff to be stored on the bottom and then smaller, lighter objects up on top. And I set these rails at a 5-degree angle in order to prevent them from sagging and or bowing as time goes on. Here I am just laying out the shelves. I clamped them all together to get all 4 boards marked the same from the same end, and basically just measuring out where I'm going to have them and how long the pieces I need. After we laid them out and we figured out the size of the bottom rails, my father-in-law went ahead and cut down all the spacers for the shelves and set that at that 5-degree angle, which will keep them, um, prevent them from sagging and pointing down. While he's cutting all the remainder of the shelves, I'm over here basically laying them out and connecting them to each of the stanchions. I did 3 one-way, and then I turned the 4th one over, and I basically just did the mirror image because I want the front or the stanchion that everybody's going to see when they walk in to be just one solid board and not each of these spacers. So after I got them lined up, I used one of the shelf as just a simple spacer guide, and I basically just ran down the line, putting a spacer in, screwing down the stop blocks, putting another spacer in, screwing the stop blocks, and on and on and on. After I got them all done, I came over and did a quick test fit just to explain and show like what we were doing so that he had a better understanding. We did end up coming up with a good idea and extending one of the rails all the way to the wall to give me another extra shelf of storage directly over the plywood, which would otherwise be just a waste of space. I won't bore you with me taking the full time and reassembling the other 3 legs, but basically here is me just knocking out the last 3 legs, getting them all screwed together, and finishing placing all the spacers on the legs. We did later put a block on top and bottom to lock in the bottom rail, which I did not get on video, but we did put a block on the top and bottom rail. At this point, we're just measuring out from the wall about how far we're going to put the shelves, which, like I said, I think that's around 24 inches in total. And then basically just measuring from each space. I had my dad go ahead and hold the level just to kind of get it close, and I went and put in some deck screws just through the 2x4 into the rafter. Again, these are firmly placed, seated on the ground, so there's actually no weight transference up through the rafter other than lateral movement from left to right, which shouldn't be an issue. All the weight should be pressing straight down on the stanchions. This was kind of the most stable idea I could think of, and seemed to work out just fine. After we mounted them on the wall, we cut the spacers for the feet at the bottom, and that allowed me to use up more scrap because I took this piece of particle board. It's 3/4 inch. I had left over from, I don't know, some other project I was working on at the house, but basically ripped it down into a 20-inch wide, 8-foot long board, which is going to act as the platform for all of my plywood storage. And it will also lock these 4 stanchions together into one solid continuous base, which is good because that'll prevent them from moving independently of one another. Basically, it'll just make them one solid structure. I just put in a couple screws at the end and then a couple of other screws to hold them 2 middle stanchions together. After that was the start of setting the shelves into place. Basically, I just slid one shelf in, put a screw through the middle just to lock it to that 2x4. There really shouldn't be any side-to-side movement, so I don't feel like I really needed to put more than just one screw to kind of hold it into place. And this is the shelf that I was telling you about. My dad had the idea to extend it all the way to the wall to give me a little extra storage. We may end up later on coming in with an 8-foot 2x4 to support the very end of that, and then doing like a ram set into the foundation. I've only used one of those a couple of times, but my dad said it should be pretty well sturdy once we do that, and that'll prevent that end from dipping any lower than it already is, and we'll basically lock that shelf in there permanently. But other than that, we took the other remaining shelves, basically just put them in there. You could see that slight angle that they're on, which is 5 degrees. I figured that's perfect enough just to keep them from bowing and sagging too much, or over time having whatever weight I do have on them really weigh them down and or possibly break them. We did end up going in afterwards and putting feet down there on those bottom shelves, because that bottom shelf is going to hold quite a bit of weight. Some of these 2x12s that I had and old 2x4s were significantly heavier than I had anticipated, so ended up putting some feet under there, which I don't think I got in the video, but you'll see them after in the completed project. After that, I just loaded in those few extra sheets that I had, put them in there so that they would hold the base in place. After we got all of the shelves in place, you can see we already started loading it up. I didn't realize that I had pressed record and then my battery died, so this is towards the end of loading that entire mess from the beginning of the video onto the shelves. It's much neater, and I think helps me see what I have on hand.
Hey, just want to say thanks for coming along, checking out my weekend build, my weekend project. Let me know what you think. If you have any comments, go ahead and leave them below. Otherwise, if you want to see something, recommend a video, or have any questions about the build that I did, yeah, let me know. Other than that, thanks, and hope this inspires some sort of project for you guys. Have a good one.